believe it or not, some Americans actually don't like Australia. They're not that different from America. Sydney felt like an American city to me. Okay, but those aren't even the worst, bro. Because as an American who loves to visit Australia, today I want to check out the most offensive stuff Americans ever say about Australia and Aussie culture. But as always, I need to give you a fair warning. These will be some of the worst things you can ever expect to find on the internet. So let's get ready for a crazy ride. And the first one, I'm saying you will not believe what they're saying. Guys, is Bluey made by Americans or the British? Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. Is Taylor Swift Canadian or European? Or how about this? Is Apple a Korean or Chinese company? How about you tell me that? I'm an Aussie living in the US and they always ask me how we live with so many big spiders everywhere, as if they live inside the room on the wall all day or something. Yeah, this baffles me as well, bro, you know? Whenever I tell my American friends, hey, I'm going to Australia again, they will be like, bro, they have spiders as big as your face. But you know what? After I traveled all over Australia, I literally only saw one spider, maybe the size of my palm. And that was outdoors, so please can anyone show me where to find those massive, hairy Australian spiders so I get to see if they're real or not. But what's even funnier is, and I'm not even making this up, most American friends I have actually buy into that stereotype, with many of them saying that's the only thing keeping them from ever traveling to Australia. So I guess it's fair to say that if you don't want Americans visiting your nation, all you need is a bunch of spiders, and that will leave you all alone. But it's up to you to decide if you would rather be dealing with American tourists or a lot of massive spiders. But hey, enough about spiders, cause we're going to look at something even crazier. They only drink tea because they want to look fancy. Okay, this one is kinda weird, cause I can swear I always see my Aussie friends eating breakfast and then drinking a cup of coffee. And you all know that Aussie coffee is totally the best in the universe. So do any of you guys drink tea? And do you smash the subscribe button if you enjoy a fun video just like this one? I bet you didn't see that coming, huh? Everything is upside down in Australia. Oh yes, as a matter of fact, all of the footage you're seeing right now, I had to manually invert them, otherwise they all used to look like this. They keep calling a shrimp a prawn, as if none of them know the difference. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe shrimps and prawns are different things. Like, I remember an Aussie friend telling me how in Australia, there are no shrimps, only prawns. And even more so, there are no freshwater prawns, only saltwater prawns. Mate, that is so confusing. Can't we just eat them already? I heard Australia is pretty chill. Does it mean you guys don't have to follow any rules? Oh gosh, wait until they travel here to find out that you literally need a license for everything, even for having a snake as a pet. In fact, Australia is one of the most regulated nations in the world, which also led to them being one of the safest, which I would love for America to learn from you guys on that. But you will be surprised to know that the next one actually came from an Aussie, and they said, I can't help but feel that most Americans have a lack of understanding of how hemispheres work. The number of comments I see that couldn't believe that it's Christmas in summer, spring and October is both amusing and shocking. And there's no shame in admitting that I used to be confused when I heard any of my friends going for a ski vacation in Australia in summer. Because A, many Americans think Australia is just like a really massive rock. And B, why would there be any snow in summer? But the funniest stuff ever will always be when my Aussie friend was apparently questioned by one American saying, hey, do you guys have Christmas in July? Because in their mind, they believe everything to be completely opposite in Australia. But the next one, well, actually the next two came from Americans refusing to visit Australia for reasons so silly you doubt if they even read the news. For example, Australia doesn't feel different enough. If I'm flying for an entire day, I would want something different than America. If you need a moment to calm down, I totally get it. But you probably hear this all the time, that so many Americans believe they know everything about Australia when they know absolutely nothing at all. One of my fellow Americans said to me once, Australian culture seems to be halfway between British and American. So if I went to the UK and I already live in America, then there's no reason to visit. Brother, I can guarantee you the stuff you will see in Australia, you will not see anywhere else. Not in the UK, not in Canada, not in whatever. I mean, there's a reason the travelers who love Australia would say there is no place like Australia. Why would you visit there when all of Australia is just as hot as the desert? Again, why do Americans who never once traveled to Australia assume it's hot all the time? And then what's even worse is that so many Americans during the last Winter Olympics, bro, they were asking on social media how any Australian can ski and snowboard when there's only bushland and desert and nothing else in Australia. Bro, did you not use Google Maps to see what Australia looks like? Oh, by the way, Google Maps was also invented by Aussies, and I want to thank you for that. I mean, I have friends living in Tasmania, and they say it's like winter every single day. And when I visited Perth in spring, it was so cold I couldn't even leave the hotel. Although I do notice that due to Australia being like massive, there are places in Australia that appear to be sunny and warm almost all day every day. So I guess that joke was maybe like 20% correct. Well, maybe it is and maybe not, but that's not even the most offensive one. Do Australians still identify themselves as British? Bro, I always see this at least once a week. And a lot of the time, when you introduce your Aussie friends to your American friends, but they don't know nothing about Australia, and you see that in their face, they're panicking and they would try to say, So I heard you guys used to be British. Do you see yourself as British? Well, I don't know. Do you identify yourself as British, my dear lovely fellow Americans? Because if I remember American history correctly, America originated as a British colony, and many Americans literally descend from the Brits. And if you have a German last name, do you see yourself as a German? Bro, that is hundreds of years ago. And I don't even want to read the next one. It's a complaint coming from an Aussie living in America. I'm Australian, but everyone in America thinks I'm British because of my accent. And it really didn't help knowing that there are celebrities famous and widely supported in America, and people believe they're British, only for them to one day stumble upon their Wikipedia page to realize the actors or singers or bands they love actually came from Australia. So it's fair to say that most Americans cannot tell the difference between an Australian and British accent. But the most embarrassing mistake came from my friend traveling somewhere in Europe at the time, met a girl and then said to her, "Are you Australian? Cause you sound like one." But turns out she was from New Zealand, and apparently she was quite offended by that. Why would I visit Australia when Australians don't like Americans? It's not that exciting to go to a place where people don't like you. Okay, now this one I cannot overlook, because I have never met an Aussie in my life who would look at me differently, knowing that I came from America. If you love Aussies, Aussies love you. If you come here respecting Aussie culture and their way of life, they would love you. So I never know why so many Americans would assume Aussies don't like them before they even get to talk to a living Aussie. But I have to say the most offensive stuff said by Americans was surprisingly dull and a bit funny. Like, I was expecting a lot worse. If I didn't know any better, I would think Americans actually love Australia. No, we're not doing that one. What even is that? You know what? I quit. But if there's one thing I didn't know about Aussies, is that they somehow know more about America than Americans know about themselves. Because in this video, I want to go over the things Aussies told me about being an American and what we're still doing wrong to this day. But you can click on the videos to find out what they are.